and happy Wednesday to the world out there. And gentlemen,
Oh,
how are you doing today?
can't complain.
That's always good to hear. Want to know that you're taken care of. And Mr. Ross, how are you doing today?
Pretty groovy.
I'm glad to hear that both of you are doing well. I want to tell you, I did not sleep very well Sunday night. Usually, I'm okay with losses. Like, I'm at that stage in my life where I'm not like overly obsessed and I'm not like depressed when we lose, no matter how it happens. But something about that game just really got to me. I was like, oh man, it's like 1 in the morning. It's like 2 in the morning. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I definitely had issues that night. And fortuitously, I did have a Richard Sherman, like we were buddies hanging out dream the other night. And here's the funny thing. So he was on the 49ers and I knew he was injured and I was like, dude, I love that we can still hang out even though you're on the 49ers and I still root for the Seahawks. But I think it's just really cool that we can still be buds. Like that was literally the focus of my dream. That's all I remember. So obviously, COVID's getting to me. The whole being at home for 8 months is finally starting to make me crack. But I'm looking forward to this game. I'm looking to rebound from what was, I feel like, a really disappointing game in like almost every facet.
Yeah. Yeah, it was ugly. I mean, it wasn't could have been worse. Like I feel like we had opportunities and kind of gave it away, but um I think the reason why maybe it affected you so much that you had trouble sleeping, it was kind of that uh this is how we play this year and it didn't work this time, which could potentially be a not a very good omen going forward.
Yeah, I mean, Ross, is that something that you thought that because only when they were kicking that first field goal in overtime did I think that we were going to lose. That's the only point that I thought that we were going to lose. And then I thought like, oh, they missed it. We're going to win. We're just going to march down that field, kick a chip shot field goal, and we're going to be done. Like when DK got that touchdown, I was jumping up and down. I was like, oh, finally. We had to wait until what? 67 minutes into a game for this to finally happen. What was your takeaway? That was the game you got to watch during the daylight hours for you.
Yeah. Um, it was a little bit surreal because like when you watch Rocky 3 and he's gonna lose that first fight and he's gonna win the second fight. And you've seen it many times because that movie came out in like 1982. Jeez, 40 years ago almost.
That's the
But
Mr. T, right? Mr. T is in
yeah,
Rocky
Mr.
3? Yeah.
T is in that, and what's his name? The wrestler.
Hulk
Hulk
Hogan?
Hogan. Hulk Hogan is in that. I mean, it's the ultimate like early '80s movie. That's its place in history. But like the outcome's never in doubt. Of course, if you made you wouldn't bet on the Rocky 3 final fight. You know who's gonna win. And it felt like I kind of had that approach to it, like really, really cocky. I never like the outcome was never in doubt. I watched the first half, and it's just all my suspicions came true. Like look at us roll, and then the second half came, and things were not going very awesome, and they made some adjustments, and we didn't, and we had some people go out, but I just kind of kept assuming. I mean, I had a little bit of two minds. Like there's always been anyway. Because of Russ, not necessarily because of what the style we're playing this year, whatever. Because of Russ, because of Pete Carroll, I just never had really any doubt. And then when it got to overtime, even once it got to overtime, I'm like, that was a little weird. How did we get to overtime? Like we had it, what? But we won the toss, so all right, cool. Now we're gonna win. Oh, wait, we're not. And then it was very, 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 very weird. And it was a discombobulating, disconcerting loss. I admit there was a tiny, tiny part of me that was like, see, like as like I haven't completely fully bought in with the way that we're playing this year, and I don't even necessarily agree that it made a record. But I suspect we could have got to 5-0 playing on the normal style. But because I hang this, there's a lot of blame to go around. I mean, Russ did not have a great game, and there was a couple of just weird penalties and bad coaching decisions potentially. But at the end of the day, is we've got a historically bad defense, so and you're not going to get very far with that in December, January.
Do you feel like this was the first game, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but do you feel like this was the first game that the defense actually let the team down?
No, I felt that the defense has let the team down the whole season. Honestly, like we've won the games, but it kind of reminds me. Do you know? Like, I mean, they never said it explicitly, but you always got the feeling when Richard Sherman was here, and Michael Bennett and that crew, that they never felt acknowledged because they thought Russ got too much attention. And in the games where their offense still sputtered occasionally, or for sometimes games at a time, you just sort of felt like they had this resentment towards the offense, was holding back their historic defense. And now it just sort of like it's gone full circle where this kind of shameful excuse for a defense is out there. And even in a game where Russell Wilson threw 3 interceptions, if the defense makes, I don't know, any stop anywhere, I don't know, force a third down, maybe even, maybe things look different. But this year, like the defense is along for the ride, purely and simple.
I think that's a pretty accurate way to describe this defense, because we've talked about, we think we have people that are good. We have people like Bobby Wagner. We have people like KJ Wright. We have, when healthy, at Jamal Adams. We think we have these really, really good, if not top tier players, yet they're not able to show like consistently great plays. And maybe that's because teams can scheme around. It's like, look, we're just not going to run up the middle unless we can get 3 people on Bobby Wagner. We're going to stop running screens against KJ Wright this year because he's sniffing them all out. But, put him in maybe some zone and, he'll lose the player across the middle. So I'm with you. I kind of feel like the defense has been bad all year so far. They really haven't changed. Obviously I think that the challenge was Kyler Murray was much more mobile, and I don't think a lot of quarterbacks can get away when they are dead to rights or someone's got like their jersey in the back and he just spins out of it. It's kind of like when Russell Wilson just like spins out of these crazy plays. That's the only, I guess, like benefit of doubt I wouldn't want to give the defense, is that Kyler Murray had a great game. We didn't put pressure on him. He was never in a position of doubt, and I felt like he kind of got to do whatever he wanted. And that's it's really tough to see when your defense struggles that badly.
I mean, like you said, we've talked about it, and it just gets more and more apparent that we're not putting our players into a position to succeed, or we're massively misevaluating some of our players. I don't know. It's weird because they're still making the one good thing they are doing is compared to like the Chris Richard defense. There was a couple years, remember, where we couldn't get any interceptions and we couldn't get any turnovers anymore. Remember that?
Yeah.
Like we were still being consistent with like stopping the yardage, but we could never, ever, ever get a turnover. Last year and this year, Ken Norton does whatever he's doing because it can't be a coincidence. The coordinator change, because people keep saying, "Does the coordinator matter? Does the coordinator matter?" I mean, clearly the defense flavor of Seattle has changed over the past 8 years. You can see it, right? And it's not just adjustments or players' personnel. I mean, under Chris Richard, we kept everything in front of us better, but could never, ever, ever get a turnover.
Yeah.
Now we get turnovers, actually, a couple a game. Oh, we've got at least one pick every game, but it's the day-to-day, the down-to-down defense now that we're letting down. Ken Norton, and at this point, he must recognize it about himself. He cannot get a defense off the field on third down. The last 3 drives, the other team only even faced third down once.
Right.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, again, it's not even just like that we're bad. I mean, like the defense in general in the NFL this year is bad. I think the NFL has to really take a look if they've gone too far, because it does make things boring when you start looking at offenses just holding serve. But I mean, it's historically bad now. It's not just bad in Seattle. They're giving up yardage that's never been given up before. Like if you throw for 300 yards a game every game, you're at just under 5,000 yards for it, and that's really, even today, that's pretty much an achievement, right?
5,000 is still the achievement, I think.
Right. It used to be 4,000, now it's 5,000. Like, it's still pretty rare, but we're giving up 370 yards a game. 370 yards a game now. That's unprecedented. Nothing's even close, even this year. It's historically bad.
Do you feel that's a factor in most of these games, Seattle's getting double-digit leads and teams have no choice but to pass the ball?
That happens every year. Teams are really, really good on offense every year. That doesn't happen to them, though. There's nothing that we're doing that's never been done before on offense.
Right, because we're seeing it 6 games in a row.
I mean, it does happen that, yes, it's true. I mean, for example, that was why we thought or some people thought our run defense was good. That's true. That was a mirage, right? Because people have to throw on us. That does happen every year. Some teams that are really good on offense artificially look like they're good on run defense because people have to throw against them.
Right.
But that was a mirage. We're not actually good on run defense, we found out. So that's true about that. But overall, I can't say that we're not like a historically amazing offense. We're not the best of all time, and so teams just start out throwing. And even if it was true, if teams are one-dimensional against us and having to throw, that would seem to play into our hands. If they have to throw and you still can't stop it at all, well, you're still not doing a good job.
Yeah, you don't have any pass rush. You can't get to the quarterback.
Yeah, that would explain why the other team has so many pass attempts. It shouldn't explain why, like, they're completing 80% of them, right? I mean, that's not good.
Yeah,
I don't know,
I'm
man.
curious because Kyler Murray, he had a really great game. I don't want to take away from a game that he had, because he definitely had a better game than Russell Wilson, and I was really surprised because he played the Cowboys and he only completed like 9 attempts across like 20 some odd throws. So he was under 50%. He was like around 40 some percent on his throws, but he had 3 long plays where he got all of his yards. So I'm really curious to see what happened in that game with the Cowboys, and they have also a very historically poor defense, versus what we saw with this game on Sunday night, where Kyler Murray, he had no pressure, and therefore he had time to throw again and again and again. But like you said, Ross, the Seahawks generated 2 turnovers. They had a fumble on DeAndre Hopkins. They had an interception on Kyler Murray. So that maybe kind of canceled some things out for the defense, but obviously it's not enough because we're seeing them give up just yards after yards after yards.
It puts a lot of pressure on the offense as well. Like, they have to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into that. Let's go into topic number 1, because this is a question that I'm really curious about. And Zeb, I'm going to hit you off with this first. Topic number 1, who is the prime reason for our success and who is the prime reason for our first loss? If you could pin 5 wins on one person and if you could pin 1 loss on one person, who would you pick?
Well, I don't think it's any surprise that Russell Wilson is the main reason for most of our success, and that's not just even this season. That's going back a ways. That's, to me, that's the easy one. The reason for our loss, that's a little harder to put on one person. I guess maybe I could say Yannick. It's, I don't know. I think the lack of consistent pressure is our biggest problem. I think the secondary is obviously having a very hard time covering receivers, but I don't think it's because they're not good. I think that with a more consistent pass rush, it would just make things easier for them. Even with Jamal Adams back, like if he has to cover a guy for 4, 5, 6 seconds, it's just not conducive to playing good defense and being able to get stops and get off the field. So, I don't know that. I mean, I guess in that situation, you could blame it on the front office for not getting the right guys in, or obviously the easy scapegoat is to blame it on the coordinator. But I think there's a good share of blame to go around for why the defense is struggling so bad, and that and just as a little added piece here, Russell did throw 3 interceptions, so.
Ugly interceptions.
Yeah, he didn't have. It wasn't his finest game. Although the first half he was pretty spectacular, and seeing that him and Lockett's connection was unbelievable. To see that in the same game that we ended up losing on some that kind of felt like we gave it away is really frustrating.
Zeb, I hate to do it. I know it's political year, political season 2020, elections coming up next week. I need one person that you're going to pin this loss on.
Donald Trump.
Okay, fair enough. Ross, who's the prime reason for our success, and who are you going to say is the reason for our first loss?
Just so I can give a different answer, I'm going to go with DK Metcalf.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because, I mean, Russ has always been Russ, but we haven't always been able to do what we do now, and I think it's the extra threat of Metcalf out there. I mean, even this game, he only had two catches for 23 yards, but
he should have had 3. That third one should have counted.
Yeah, but what it does is, if you're a defense, you can choose to shut one of the 2 down. Perhaps you want to put your best guy and maybe a double cover on Metcalf. Fine, then Lockett's out there going to get 3 touchdowns, 15 catches, 200 yards. That's his second 3-touchdown game of the season, I think.
It is the second 3-touchdown game for Mr. Tyler Lockett.
Out of 6 games, that's pretty ridiculous. I mean,
he has 7 touchdowns now?
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. And because by virtue of his physical presence, DK Metcalf, I think, is going to attract it more often sometimes, especially now with his early season success. But then, then you just Lockett do whatever he wants to do. And he's also elite. He just doesn't have the charisma and doesn't have the mystique about him. So he doesn't get quite the press and whatever. But, 15 catches, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns says a lot.
All right, real quick.
I think, go ahead.
Did you think that DK was going to catch Budda Baker on that pick? I did not. I was surprised that he caught him because his closing speed in the last 10 yards once he got to the 30, I was so surprised that he caught him.
I don't think I realized in the moment how amazing it was. I didn't realize at first who had grabbed the interception, and so I didn't realize that that's also a speedy guy. It's a guilty admission, but I didn't realize in the moment how amazing it was. It took a review and me going, oh, because I don't even think I watched it carefully. Once I saw the interception, I had a 3-second fit.
Fair enough.
So I wasn't watching. I missed a historical moment. I mean, I watched it again and again and again and again later, but in the moment, I didn't. It's one of those moments I didn't realize what I was seeing.
Zeb, did you think that DK was going to catch up to Baker?
I went so quickly from cursing the play to cheering the play. I think once I realized what was happening, I was pretty sure that he was going to get him, or just it was going to be very close if he didn't. It was unbelievable to watch. I don't think I've ever cheered a bad play, a negative play so loudly as I did when that happened. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. All right. Sorry to interrupt, Ross. Who would you say is the prime reason for this first loss? If you're going to give one person.
I really, really, really hate to say this, but I'm gonna go with John Schneider.
Interesting.
I don't think at this point the team has done a good job of realizing. I mean, we used to be their forte, but I don't think they actually understand exactly the right personnel that they need to run their scheme. Like, this is the same basic defense that used to be, really, really good, and I just don't think they understand who they need to run it right now. And they can't, and they haven't maybe adjusted when they couldn't get the guys.
Right.
Like, I don't think we realized how much this defense absolutely requires a hard pass rush. I wonder, actually, I'm starting to kind of wonder if the defensive system is slightly unrealistic. It might require a level of talent that you're not likely to get most of the time.
When you're stacked with a Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Hall of Fame worthy defense, and you're going and relying on a scattering of second rounders, third rounders, fourth rounders, fifth rounders, and a couple free agent acquisitions to fill out your defense.
I tell you, football is frustrating in the fact that there's 16 games a season. Only 16. Like, baseball gets 162 games, and it's a series of one-on-one, essentially, competitions, right? So it's really, really hard to know anything in football, in my opinion. Like, I was really proud of the fact that Pete Carroll brought Cover 3 to the NFL because of the fact that going way, way back, even when I was in junior high, Cover 3 was considered like it's a high school, maybe college defense. You can't use that in the pros. But he made it work in the pros. I was really, really excited by that. And now I'm wondering if Pete Carroll's defense can work if you don't have a historical level of talent. I'm starting to wonder if the talent. I've never thought this before, but I mean, it's always both the coaching and the talent. But I've actually I've tooted the horn for a few years that in the modern NFL with the salary cap and everybody actually is really good. That it really, really is the coaching that matters.
Right.
More sometimes. I mean, I've said that several times on our podcast, and I gotta say, I'm having some doubts. I'm starting to wonder, like, is it just talent? Did we win that Super Bowl purely on just having way better people? Because I've always wondered, like, is Richard Sherman a really, 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 really good quarterback, or is he just perfect for the system they put him in? Because I still think that. I don't think Richard Sherman is Deion Sanders, and I don't think you could have put him in any other defense and had him have the level of success he's had. He's not fast enough. He's not athletic enough.
Right.
But now I feel like this year has made me. Well, last year plus this year makes me think I don't know anything.
Well, 2020 will do that to you. I think that's fair to say. If any year any of us are going to say, you know what, I might have this one wrong, 2020 is the perfect year to announce that.
It's like, I don't know if it's Ken Norton. I don't know if we just don't have the time. I don't know if it's Pete Carroll. I don't know if it's John Schneider. Not like, see, because like people keep saying like, well, it's John Schneider's fault because he didn't bring in the right talent, the right pass rusher, but. There's only like 10 of those guys, and we don't have one, and nobody wants to let him go.
I feel like that's such a bad like Monday morning quarterbacking. It's as if you only play Madden and you could pick whoever you want, and you could trade for everyone, and there's like no consequence. I feel like people that say like, oh, and I'm not saying about you blaming John for this loss, but it's this idea that well, the front office should have just gotten the best pass rusher available. It's like, well, sometimes they're not available to you, and you have to make a decision. Do I want the 5th graded pass rusher, who I don't think is that great, and I give like this low of a grade to, or do I want to get this top rated player at this position, which I feel could add value, right?
See, and that's what I used to always say and always think too. But now I'm sitting here thinking, you know what? We maybe needed to trade like Quandre Diggs and Chris Carson and get to somebody who needed, like, it's like give them an offer they can't refuse. Maybe instead of getting Jamal Adams, because if you rush him, then you leave your secondary open. So maybe we needed to give up what we gave up to get Jamal Adams plus like Quandre Diggs and Chris Carson, because we got some depth at halfback, and gotten J.J. Watt or whatever.
Yeah, but we saw someone like a Jadeveon Clowney who came in for a really low
But
price.
he was never going to be the answer.
I know that, but the point I'm trying to say is the players that you can get and the players that are available and the players that you want often don't line up.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we could have made a ridiculous offer because, like, and it looks ridiculous, but maybe if that's what you absolutely need, those players are even maybe more important for our particular style of defense. If Pete Carroll is going to run this defense, and we find out in reality, you have to. Every player is available. If somebody gave us 10 first-round picks for Russell Wilson, we'd take it, right? Like, if we got two round.
You take that deal, but it's one of those things that you're going to be suffering for a while.
Yeah, but you take it. Nobody's absolutely off limits if you want to be dumb.
Oh, for sure. That GM that makes that trade gets fired for sure.
But if it works out, man, if we gave up Quandre Diggs and we had to play somebody else back, because we found that the defense doesn't run well, but it can run when the free safety sucks. I used to think Earl Thomas was the most important person out there, but now I think that I was kind of blinded by my semi-negative feelings towards Michael Bennett. That Michael Bennett, my slightly negative feelings about him, and Cliff Averill just sort of being kind of a non-charismatic guy maybe blinded me to the fact that those were probably the most important guys on the defense, and I didn't see it.
I think that's a fair assessment. I think we'd have to dive into a little bit more.
And like I said, it's hard to know in football because there's no one-on-one things. It's a 16-game season, so you don't get a statistical, meaningful sample. And this year, I don't. Zeb, do you agree? Do you feel less confident what you knew and what you thought about the defense compared to before, or was it just me?
I mean, I don't know. It hasn't been trending great the last few seasons, so
no.
I honestly, I did buy in for a moment to the idea that building a great secondary would be enough, but that seems to be whether or not that secondary is even as good as we thought they were, who knows? But I think it all comes down to that pass rush. So.
Apparently.
And that's why those guys get $27 to $30 million. So.
And that's why you can't give it to Jadeveon Clowney, because that dude's got one sack, no sacks on the year.
Yeah.
I mean, we were pretty significantly better when he was on the field last year versus when he wasn't. So.
Right. But I think the issue is someone like a Jadeveon Clowney, the way that he was used in Seattle, he's going to pick up the double team. He's going to do a lot of dirty work, and it will help someone else get that one-on-one matchup to be successful. But we still, like, our sack leader last year was 4.
But
and if I'm a GM, it doesn't matter what I think I need. I'm not going to give a player $25 million because he plays ugly. Like that's like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna give this quarterback $30 million. He doesn't throw touchdowns, but he doesn't throw interceptions, and he's not gonna lose me a game." Like no one wants that kind of player on their team, especially at the money that they're trying to get.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how the Titans use him and how he's the lack of production there. Like they don't. It's kind of ironic to me that we say that we need him to have our pass rush work, but we had him last year. The pass rush didn't work, and last year he made some amazing plays. There was 2 games that we won, like because of him,
for sure.
But at the same time, we were still a pretty bad defense last year.
Yeah. Well, I also think that Jaron Reed last year wasn't 100%. And this year he seems to be. It's almost like it was perfectly wrong. Like this is the year where he could benefit immensely from a guy like Clowney.
Yeah.
Whereas last year it didn't help as much because of him coming off the injury and everything.
Yeah.
Does Reed have a sack this year?
I don't believe he does.
Yeah.
We have very few sacks at all.
We have 9 sacks, two of them from Jamal. Jared Reed.
And one of them wasn't even really a sack. It was a incomplete pass that got counted as a fumble at the end of the game because the refs were ready to go home, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to move ahead. So I'm going to go with my prime reasons for success and my prime reason for a first loss. First reason for success, Ethan Posick. Fourth-year player, couldn't find a spot on the offensive line. We have not talked about the center because he has not made any mistakes. He's not getting blown up. He's just playing solid center. Not only that, he's playing so well that the guy we signed to compete for the starting job has been traded away along with the 7th rounder for Carlos Dunlap, defensive end from the Cincinnati Bengals. So Ethan Posick, shout out to you. And who is my prime reason for a first loss? Because I'm just going to be petty, I'm going to pick on Damian Lewis, our right guard rookie, on the 3rd and 2 where Carlos Hyde is running to the right side. They have the perfect offensive play for the defensive lineup. It's a man on a man. They call it a hat on a hat. And Damian Lewis runs the wrong way, blocking Ethan Posick from blocking anybody. And the guy that Damian Lewis should have blocked ends up tackling Carlos Hyde. We don't close out the game because we can't get that first down. So, being petty, but that's my pick.
Wow, calling the rookie out.
I got to. He's having a great year. We're moving ahead, so that's my quick pick. Otherwise, I would have been more thoughtful. But let's move on to topic number 2.
Jared Reed does have a sack.
Okay. Well, I want to move on to topic number 2. And Ross, I want to know, what's the one thing that could suddenly change the Seahawks defensive woes? They've traded for Carlos Dunlap, who has averaged about 7 to 8 sacks for the past 9 years. He's an older guy for sure. This is not some young stud that they got on a ridiculously cheap deal. They didn't have to trade a lot for him. But is this the one thing that could suddenly change the Seahawks defensive woes? Like, what would you do to change that? What can we do?
One thing, if everybody gets healthy and gels, that's sort of 2 things, but I'm just going to combine it into one. If everybody's healthy, I mean, like, our starting secondary has barely been on the field. I think it's like a total of 77 plays together after 6 games. So, getting healthy, playing together, that might help. I don't think there's one. To be honest, the answer is nothing. There's not one thing that's going to happen. When you're a historically bad defense, when you're giving up 370, I mean, come on. I mean, even if we have a good pass rush, and so last game we had 3 sacks. So, like, they have 3 sacks. I mean, like, that's, I don't know, man. They gave up 8 scoring drives. I don't know. When you're this bad, I don't think you're looking for a magic bullet. You're looking for a few things. You're looking for an addition, maybe getting healthy. Maybe the rookies get some, Darryl Taylor comes back, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to take everybody's answers, so I'll just stop there. But I don't think there's one. I don't think there's a magic bullet. I don't think Dunlap is I think he's a step. I think it's a step. I don't want to sound like I'm against the. Before last game, I didn't want to make a trade. But now, especially seeing the trade, I'm all up for it. But I don't think there's a magic bullet.
All right, fair enough. Zeb, I'm giving you one choice, one thing to change to help the Seahawks defense. What are you spending?
Put me in a box, dust? Bro. Don't put me in a corner.
I'm putting you in the box, and if you don't like it, we're sending you to New Zealand on a 2-week hotel stay, and you can enjoy the quarantine down there.
I probably would.
Vacation.
The one thing that would suddenly change the Seahawks defensive woes at the risk of sounding like a broken record is a consistent pass rush.
I don't think I've heard that one before.
We made the trade today. We got Carlos Dunlap coming in. We have Rasheem Green coming back at some point, getting some more playing time. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's injuries or what. I haven't been paying that close attention. But we got Um, a guy like Alton Robinson who has shown some promise. Um, I think that we got snacks. We got snacks coming in to kind of shore up that middle a little bit. I think that if all the stars align and we can stay healthy, I think we may be seeing an improvement in that area going forward. And that's the one thing that would help. I'm not going to say it's going to turn us into the Legion of Boom from 2013, but I think it could make our defense better if we can just pressure, especially guys like Garoppolo and Goff. Like if we can get to those guys and rattle them and hit them now and again, they're going to make mistakes. And we have a ball hawking secondary that can take advantage of those mistakes. So that's it. That's my one thing, pass rush.
Well done. I do not respect your pass rush because that's the easy answer, but I respect the detail you gave for that answer. I mean, you guys are both right. There's not like one thing that's all of a sudden going to make the defense better because it's a combination of multiple issues. But the one thing that I would change if I were able to make, say, like, hey, you know what, Seahawks, this is the one thing that we're not going to do anymore. We're not going to give the receivers 10-yard cushions anymore. We're going to play within 5 yards of the receivers from now on. I don't care how fast they are. I don't care who you're lined up against. I don't care who we're playing on the defense. No more 10-yard cushions off the line of scrimmage.
Ever?
No. Like, for your corners, we can't be upset when we're giving them 10 yards of cushion and they turn that into a 7-yard hitch route and then poor tackling turns it into a bigger play.
I mean, what do you do with Trey Flowers then?
Trey Flowers doesn't get to play anymore.
Well, he does because Shaquille's concussed. So.
I understand, but this is the one thing that I'm going to change. Because what that does is it has a domino effect, meaning that Trey Flowers doesn't get to play as much. Because obviously that's the defensive scheme, and that's the way that they use Trey Flowers versus what we see with Shaquille and with Quentin Dunbar.
I think Trey Flowers is not actually being told to do that. I think that's what he does because he's got no confidence.
And I think that's a problem. And I think that's a problem. If you play defense and you're not a safety and you're not a linebacker and you're giving your guy a 10-yard cushion because you're so afraid of getting beat deep, and yet you can still get beat deep, the cushion isn't doing anything for you. So,
well, I 100% agree with you. I'm just saying, but you know, the personnel we have is the personnel we have, and Trey Flowers' confidence is absolutely shattered. He's not a football player anymore. He can't tackle. He can't cover. He can't remember his zone. He can't remember his coverage.
Which is sad because last year he was a great tackler.
He was fine last year. Yeah, he could do his job, and it's clearly like a confidence thing.
Yeah, and that's why that injury to Shaquille is such a downer. I mean, the fact that we've lost so many people in the secondary. I mean, Ryan Neal has been a real treat, I think, as a replacement.
Revelation.
But
I'm kind of afraid to take him off the field. I kind of want them to play 3 safeties now and make Jamal like a rover.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Put Neal and Diggs at high safety, and then you just have him playing like almost like a mid linebacker behind Bobby.
Like a sweeper in soccer.
Yeah.
Seriously. And how hard is that to defense? You don't know where he's going to be. You don't know when he's going to blitz. You don't know what zone he's going to have. You can't scheme away from him if you don't know where he's going to be.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most frustrating things about this defense, because it's not just like one thing that we're bad at. We're bad at so many different things. And like you were saying earlier, Ross, the way that football works, it's hard to pinpoint one area. Bobby Wagner has said multiple times that the scheme is fine, the play is fine, but the players are not doing their job. And he expressed that that's something that has to change. And Bobby is not a vocal leader that we see as fans, like we would see with a Michael Bennett, with a Cam Chancellor, with the Richard Sherman. or other players. So this is, I think, a kind of a unique insight to see that level of frustration affecting someone like Bobby, who has been with this team forever and has seen the highs and is now living this really low defensive low.
I kind of feel bad for Bobby because I don't think Bobby's one of the people who was in Russell Wilson's face about like the defense being so much better than the offense back in the day. But now he's the one still there, so like when it's the opposite, he has to sort of endure it. Like,
right, he has to be. He is the face of the defense because he and KJ have been there the longest.
And he's not the guy who was like, "Dude, you guys are not pulling your weight." That was other people, and now, but he's the one who's there now has to stick up for the defense. But it's gotta hurt. He's a prideful guy.
Yeah,
it's gotta hurt right now.
So real quick. We're gonna move on, but I want to let you guys know I looked up some stats and I'm a little depressed. Jacob Martin, one of the players that we traded away for Jadeveon Clowney, in 2019 he had in 2018 he had 3 sacks for Seattle. We traded him to Houston in 2019. He had 3.5 sacks. Currently, through his 7 games with the Texans, he has 2 sacks, and that's a 1-5 team. So, good times.
Yeah, good times.
But let's move ahead. Let's move on to topic number 3. It's the Hawkscast Corner. We're going to talk about the NFC West as we always do. Zeb, the West continues to lead the NFL. They have the most wins in any division. Did the Seahawks mess up by losing to the Cardinals, a division rival, this past Sunday?
I mean, they messed up by losing to him for sure, but I think on the grand scheme, it's not going to make that much of a difference. This is still, by a pretty considerable margin, the best division in football, and these 4 teams are going to take their licks with each other this year. It's going to happen. There's something, there's no way around it. They're going to beat each other up. They're going to play spoiler when they can, that sort of thing. So, I think the kind of pipe dream of all 4 teams making the playoffs is unlikely. But I think it's interesting that the 4th place team, the last place team in our division, the 49ers, are probably a top 5 team in this league when healthy. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Obviously, you want to win in the division whenever possible, but this isn't the season where one of these teams is going to sweep the division.
Ross, what about you? That's something that the Seahawks have always talked about. In the years that they've won the wild card berth, they said, "Oh, if we only had home field, or if we only won the division, we could make such a better run." How do you think this loss to the Cardinals, their first loss, their first divisional loss, their first conference loss, how will that impact them in the future?
It could be really severe when it comes down to it. If they do beat up on each other and it comes down, if the records all sort of accumulate near the middle, a 1-game loss is sometimes the same as 2, right? Where you end up, depending on who else you beat and who you lose to, you end up having to have a 1-game better record. You can't even just tie them, but have the tiebreaker go to you. You actually have to build a 1-game record, a better record, one more wins. So it puts a lot of pressure on the side. The second game against them is going to have a lot more meaning now. It's a lot more significance, a lot more pressure. We have to beat them the second time. If we lose to them both, even if we end up with the same record, they essentially have a better record than us. So it will matter. It's not. I mean, it's early season. Well, it's mid-season, but it's early days as far as NFC West games go for us. It's not the end of the road, like Zeb said. It's and it's 1 loss. Let's not overreact. If we just keep on going back to what we were doing and keep chugging, it'll never have to matter. If we go 15-1, what does it matter? But it's going to be interesting. Like Zeb said, and I didn't think so last week, but it looks more likely this week that it will be a lot of beating up of each other, and so we all end up around like 11-5 and 12-4 or whatever. and one game, one losses could be kind of magnified at that point, couldn't it?
Yeah. I think to a degree both of you are right. One, it's early-ish in the year, especially since this is our first NFC West game. There is still a chance to go out and play well and win 4 or 5. Once you're talking about only going 3-3 in the division, you run the risk of who did you lose to, how well is the other team playing, and what are your records in common games, because you have to start going down that list of, well, who did you lose to and who did we win against in order to try and keep seeding in above. Right now we have one less loss than 2 teams and 2 less losses than the Niners, and that's what's keeping us ahead now. But as teams start going on their bye, and as we start playing more conference games and divisional games, those will have a bigger play. I think for now, like you said, Ross, you have to win that second game in Seattle against the Cardinals. Because if you do, that means you have to have a whole game lead against the Cardinals. And that's just one of the teams that you have to face. So I want to give credit to the Cardinals for playing a great game and, winning down the stretch. But I think the Seahawks did mess up by losing that game, because it was not only a game that they controlled, but it broke a record. Before that game, the Seahawks had won like 58 games in a row when they were leading by 10 or 4 or more points at the half. And they had a 10-point lead at halftime. They had a 10-point lead with less than 5 minutes to go in that game, and they lost it in overtime. And I feel like that's a game that we will look back to all year long, saying like, if that's the one game that we made a difference, it could have had huge implications. So I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but this year, this conference, this division looks pretty tough, and we're also seeing other teams continue to do well. The Packers have shown that that one game might have been a blip. And the Bucs are playing really well as well. So, obviously the goal for the Seahawks is always to win the division first. But the talk of getting that number 1 seed, it's going to be that much harder, I believe. So I do think the Seahawks messed up.
It's one of those things where we might not necessarily know the weight of the loss until later when we see how the season plays out. So yeah, it could end up being devastating. Based on the playoff scenarios and whatnot. But as of right now, I'm not ready to panic.
I got my hand over the button, and I'll keep it there all year long. But it's not going to drop until week 17 is in the books. I'll say that. But that's playing in Phoenix. That's playing in that weird-ass stadium. There's always something weird that happens. And I think once their kicker doinked it off of the left upright, or he went wide left and got iced by his own coach, I thought that was a sign.
Yep. And then that DK gets that touchdown, and it's like, perfect, we did it just exactly how we wanted to do it, and then wah, wah.
Yeah.
If we won, that was going to be such an awesome, that would have just led, besides the Metcalf thing, but the icing your own kicker would have led on every Sports Center thing, and it would have been so many memes, and it would have been so awesome.
Oh, there are definitely a lot of memes, let me tell you. There are a ton of memes about Buda Baker being chased down by DK Metcalf that are beyond hilarious, but yes, there's a certain portion that gets subsided because of the loss.
I just wanted the game where the Cardinals iced their own kicker to live in infamy.
Yes,
oh, well.
Agreed. But let's move on to the last topic for the evening. It is topic number 4. It is the San Francisco 49ers. And Ross, I want to know, the 49er injuries are definitely worse than Seattle's. And does that mean that Seattle should be the favorites going into this home game? It is a November 1st game, so the first game in November. There are not going to be any fans at this game. The Seahawks announced, I think last week, that there were not going to be any fans. Previously, it was the first 3 home games. This is the 4th home game of the year. There are not going to be any fans in the stadium again.
Yeah. So, I mean, the injuries are worse, but did we start equal? It's we should be favored, you would think, just because they are scraping some of the barrel in some of their positions, but they have had some players emerge as well. And they say running backs don't matter, I guess. So those injuries don't count. But on defense, they've had some severe stuff. Their wide receivers are emerging. I don't know. I mean, it just feels like increasing. It all kind of comes down to the quarterback, and if the quarterbacks are similar, then other stuff starts to matter. But Garoppolo is not really in the same class, so I think we should be favored, not just because of the injuries, just because they haven't really figured out their quarterback position long term, because they thought it was like a beauty contest, and it's not.
Tony's chiming in on the chat, and he says Russell Wilson greater than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, especially with today's NFL, where you're just holding service on your offense. But that said, Russell Wilson is amazingly consistent normally, but that's kind of a contradiction. Every once in a while, he does have a stinker of a game. Every once in a while, he does have mental lapses, and if we do see that side, that's why they play the game on the field, not in the stat room. So
I love that Russell Wilson's stinker of a game is still 300 yards, 3 amazing touchdowns. He had four touchdowns? 3 touchdowns.
3.
But 3 bad interceptions.
Yeah. Even the one people trying to not blame him for legitimately seemed to be his fault. People are saying like DK, stopped his route or whatever, but basically Russell Wilson interpreted a sign to mean Metcalf was going to do something, but that wasn't what the sign was, kind of thing. So
yeah.
And by the way, just real quick, that's because it's one of my pet peeves. Everybody always says like when a receiver like cuts off his route, or it's an option route and he takes A rather than B or B rather than A, and the quarterback throws the other one, it's always the receiver's fault. And no, it's not. If you've got an experienced receiver who sees the game just as well as a quarterback, and he sees something and the quarterback doesn't, so he cuts off his route, then it's on the quarterback. It can, just because the receiver, quote unquote, runs the wrong route. If he's running the wrong route and it's not an option route, then yeah, that's his fault. But announcers and whatnot constantly say, well, he cut off his route, or he ran it shorter than, what Russ or whoever thought he was going to. But you know what? If that's what the safety or the corner's positioning dictated, and he saw it clearly, he saw it right, it can be the quarterback who's throwing the wrong place. I just got to get that pet peeve out of my system. Thank you.
Tony coming in hot, and he says that he, being Russell Wilson, started to believe his own press. So Tony firing some shots there. Zeb,
I don't think that's it at all.
Zeb, what do you take, and what's your stance on the Seahawks? I mean, both teams are definitely injured, especially in key positions, but do you think the Seahawks should still be favorites? They're a 3.5-point favorite when I looked the other day.
I think it's fair that they're favored. I mean, Vegas knows what they're doing. They know what's going on in these games.
That's what makes it interesting. When the line opened, Seattle was favored by 6.5.
It's currently at 3 right now, so it's
right. So that's some serious betting on San Francisco.
Right. Well, I think that's a lot of people are feeling kind of like I am, where they kind of believe that the Niners are, they've got all these crazy injuries to very important players, and yet they still look pretty good. I mean, they had an absolute stinker against the Dolphins, but the Dolphins are a team that I think is better than people really give them credit for. So,
they've sat Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, well, they changed their season, but that's a different story. I'm worried. I do think that the 49ers present some trouble for us, especially after seeing, the way the defense fell apart last weekend. I don't know. It's hard to say. I do think that the Seahawks are the better team, but it's not by much. And if we make the kind of mistakes that we made last week, I do believe that Kyle Shanahan and the Niners are going to take advantage of those mistakes. They look like they are on a mission to me. Like they're ready to prove people wrong, the people that doubted them for coming out slowly. But it, it's the line's fair. The line's fair to me. I don't see any reason why we would be not favored in this game by at least a couple of points. So I'll take that. I'll take that bet.
Just want to chime in here real quick with who the Niners have actually played. So they lost to the Cards to begin the year. They beat the Jets. They beat the Giants. They lost to the Eagles. They lost to the Dolphins. They beat the Rams, and they beat the Patriots. So they're 4-3, but I don't know how impressive 3 of those wins are.
No, they're not, but you got to look at their most recent games, in my opinion, to show what kind of team they are at this point of the season.
And I mean, you can only play the people on your schedule, so.
Yeah, I agree, but we're using transitive property if A is better than B and B is better than C, which again is very flawed. They're 4-3, and their injuries I think have a huge impact to that. I think what has happened is, like you were saying earlier, if the line opened at 6.5, and is now down to 3, there are a lot of people that are believing in the Niners because they have 2 good wins against the Rams and the Patriots. And the Rams are a 5-win team, that I think is a very good quality win. But at some point, I think injuries are definitely going to catch up to the Niners because I don't know if it's the level of people they're playing and the fact that their quarterback has already been benched once already this year. I think Seattle should be able to take advantage. I'm hoping that we're a little bit healthier. The big issue will Jamal Adams be able to practice tomorrow? That seems to be the kind of deciding factor. If Jamal can practice and he can stay good the whole practice Thursday, that means that he should be a go for Sunday, which I think will be really promising because any help we can add, and it's surprising, a guy that can help our secondary and our pass rush is going to be a positive.
I don't want them to rush Jamal back. I mean, I want him back and I want him playing, but if it's detrimental, like if he's, they say it's a groin, but it could be like a sports hernia, and if that's the case, like make sure that thing is healed up before you get him back out there.
I think that's obviously, hopefully that's everyone's like expectation, like not to rush him out before he's ready because they still have the 5 wins under their belt, but yeah, like, there are other guys that are coming back that are hopefully going to be healthy, which I think is good. Maybe Snacks plays, which would be great to see him activated on the roster. But yeah, we won't know.
It sure feels like every year we sign somebody who never plays. Man.
Yeah, it sure does.
Or who's just hurt the whole time.
Ziggy Ansah, man, he's down for the whole year again.
That guy,
hang him up.
If you can't play, you can't play. Who's our receiver who's got a left foot injury that we didn't know?
Philip Dorsett.
Yeah, come on, man.
And he was supposed to play last weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's never going to play.
He's never going to play.
Yeah, for sure.
At this point, do you want him to play? Like, David Moore is doing well.
Dude, check this out. Freddie Swain did not have a catch in the game on Sunday. That's the reason why we lost. That's my other prime reason why we lost our first game. Not That's involving fair. Freddie Swain in the game plan.
Gotta get Swain moving.
Yeah, if we can't activate Swain, it's our own fault.
Dude, you gotta. I don't know. I'm pretty impressed with David Moore's comeback. I mean, it's not gonna make any press. It's not gonna win any awards because he's not a name. But especially like this is the kind of comeback story I really like. He wasn't injured or anything last year. Last year he just had a bad year. He wasn't himself. He didn't do very well.
But he had a fly sweep that was just a regular fly sweep that went for a first down. He didn't have to do anything crazy to get that first down.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with David Moore this year. That's a solid WR3, man.
That hold on the DK touchdown. I mean,
Was that a legit hold?
oh yeah, it was.
Nah,
It,
it was
not only was it
legit.
legit, but it changed the play.
Unnecessary. I mean that's not awesome. So he screwed that up, but you know,
It's just it's awesome that we scored on the play, but it was because of the hold, and we didn't need to score on the play.
Because
you know what I mean?
so what I heard was, and again, I was obviously out of sorts after that game. I didn't rewatch any highlights, but I heard that if David Moore just didn't do anything, DK Metcalf still gets the first down. It's Tyler Lockett that threw the killer block on that one. Like, legit, just an awesome block. He, like, put his full body into it.
Yep.
That's
Tyler
what I
Lockett
heard.
gets the first down, and David Moore's hold gets the touchdown, but we only needed the first one.
Okay. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett, I mean, he had some amazing plays, but one of them was the block.
Tyler
For
Lockett,
nothing.
man. I continue to marvel at him and Russell Wilson's chemistry. It almost feels as if we haven't had a game, and maybe this is what defenses are doing. They're choosing to shut someone down, and it's opening it up for someone else.
Yeah, every time it is. I mean, you can't. No team has depth to blanket both, so pick your poison, as they say.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Russ for having one of his bigger running days in a while.
Yeah, I thought that they were going to continue doing that, but then Chris Carson got hurt, and then Buda Baker killed our third down back. I can't believe that game that they didn't flag it. I was very upset with the refs in that game, but I can't believe full on Buda Baker helmet to helmet, and he doesn't get flagged.
Nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Russ became the all-time leader of passing completions in franchise history. So
Yeah.
Did Russell Wilson have a concussion?
I mean, that would explain those bad interceptions.
I thought he looked even his facial expressions started to look weird. I think he did.
he didn't look very happy after a certain point. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, in that game, he got hit in the head when he slid into the ground.
Yeah.
When he slid legs first, Patrick Peterson hit him with his helmet. Like, that should have been a flag.
Totally.
Um,
They take Patrick Peterson out to check him for the concussion, but they didn't take Russ out.
yeah, it's definitely
That's
a
like
weird
the protocol.
weird.
Like if you initiate the hit, the science says you're the one more likely to have it, but it's not like an absolute. You're playing with probability. Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of crap.
All right,
Nano
well,
bubble.
let's move along. We got some predictions here for you. So, Ross, I'm going to hit you up first. What is the final score, 49ers and Seahawks?
31-28.
Okay. Zeb?
37-31.
Okay. I think that's the score I picked, and we were very close to it. I thought that's what was going to be the final score. I'm going to go Ricky Waters, Richard Sherman, 32-25.
25.
Yes. Niners score 25 points somehow.
How do they get that?
Do it.
You can do it. So you, let's see, I think you get six field goals and 1 touchdown.
Well, that's not going to happen.
2-point conversions and
It's 2-point conversion, and then you get a field goal.
Yeah, because it's 32-25. That's within a touchdown. So they could also be going for a 2-pointer at one point or another.
there you go.
So the Seahawks have been very successful in the turnover game, but who wins the turnover game? Seattle versus San Francisco.
Who's going first? What?
Is that
Silence.
Ross, go first.
Who wins the turnover battle? We do by 1.
Okay, Zeb.
Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Seahawks. I think Russ will get some nano bubbles, get everything sorted in his head, and he'll be all good. I want to know, if both Carson and Carlos Hyde are out, who leads the team in rushing? Is it going to be Russell Wilson, Travis Homer, DJ Dallas, or somebody else?
DJ Dallas with just 35 yards.
Ooh.
Let the DJ Dallas era begin.
Yeah.
And DJ Dallas, he is not the third down pass rusher that Travis Homer is.
No.
Get
him out of there.
There was a couple plays where he was like blocking air. It was...
He got Russ killed.
Yeah, it was not the sight to be seen. I'm going to say if both Carson and Carlos Hyde are out, Russell Wilson's going to lead the team.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Who is the best jersey to purchase after this game? So against the Niners, which jersey are you buying? You can pick Wolf, white, or college blue. Wilson, Lockett, Metcalf, Wagner, Griffin, Adams, or other.
Metcalf in the gray.
Metcalf in the gray.
You know what? Metcalf in the away. I don't
The
think
white
the
looks
gray,
so clean.
14, yeah, the 14 on the gray. Maybe not enough contrast to be that cool. Yeah, the away Metcalf.
Give me Metcalf in that home blue.
I love the home blue. Because you both went Metcalf, I'm going to go Adams because I think if he can play a whole year, and if he plays this game, I think we're going to see some good things. So,
yeah.
Over under Jason Meyer field goal attempts. He had his season high in that game. He kicked 2 field goals. So we're pushing him.
Touchdowns this game, so it's going to be the under. I think you're going to give us 2.5. It's under. He's only going to try and he's going to make it. Going into halftime, kick that 57-yarder. Very oddly specific.
Zeb, what's 2.5 over under for Mr. Myers?
Under. He's going to get 1.
Gonna get 1. I'm trying to think if I need to get to 32 points. How do you get there? I think you're either kicking a ton of field goals or you're going for 2. So I'm going to say under because I can't figure out the math. I think you have to kick like.
Well, you can go for
6.
Go for 3, and then I get you to 29. Then you kick a field goal. So you have
14 needs 1 2-point conversion.
Yeah, no, Mr. Myers, you're gonna get 1 field goal, or maybe 2. You might get 2. Over under, is Michael Dixon gonna boot the ball 4.5 times in this game? He's having a great year. I think he messed up by not taking the delay of game penalty on that 4th down when we were up 34-31.
That's something you have to tell him to do. I don't think that's his mistake. That's something you have to tell your opponent to do. I mean, the dude's Australian who doesn't even know the rules, probably.
Yeah, but Michael Dixon punts 4.5.
Over.
Sad.
Oh, he's going to be under.
I think it's going to be an ugly game. I think the Seahawks are going to score in bursts as we've seen this year, so I'm going to go with the over. He's going to have a bunch of boots. It's going to look really good. We don't know who's going to be running the ball, but over under Seahawks rushing yards, 90 yards.
Under.
Over.
I'm going to push. I'm going to say it's a flat 90. And the last prediction for the game, over under Seahawk defense 3 and outs forced 2.5.
Under.
I'll go over.
I think if Jamal plays, we'll maybe get 3, but I think we're more likely to have maybe 1. Our defense just not so great this year.
Yeah.
And
let's add in the Dunlap plays played. What plays on the field? 15 under over.
He can't play this week.
He can't play this week.
He cannot play this week. He has to wait until week 9.
Why?
Per the NFL's COVID rules, even because he has not been with Seattle, he hasn't had enough days with the team to get out of their quarantine.
I'm going to go under then.
Yeah. So that's the reason why.
Madden games played in quarantine, 15 or probably over.
Oh, well over. Gentlemen,
all right.
That is the show for today. Lots of topics, lots of feelings. Hopefully we see a turnaround. But any shout-outs for the day?
Shout out to Tony for listening. and contributing, and Steve Largent, because I've got his rookie card sitting here on my desk, and thanks, Steve.
Nice.
Co-leader with Tyler Lockett for most receptions in a Seahawks game.
Wow.
True, that was that Steve Largent though comes with an asterisk. Do you know how he got his? He came back in again. He played a game against the Scabs in '87. Like the NFL was on, the players were on strike. The NFL league brought in Scabs to play. The players started to break the cross
picket line.
Yeah, and so Steve Largent played one game against the Scabs, and he had 15 catches, I think 168 yards and 3 touchdowns, I think. God, I can't remember.
That's no 15-200 3-touchdown game. Like
okay, yeah.
Try that, Largent.
I mean,
Sammy,
it was funny to watch, though.
Sammy, shout out to you, my friend. You are our rock, and this doesn't happen without you. And believe me, I know that's a fact because we've tried and failed every time. So
Yes,
shout out to you.
Well, good news is COVID's keeping me locked down, so I'm not going anywhere. Shout out, as always, to Ross and to Zeb for being a part of this wonderful Hawkscast podcast. Shout out to Tony for chiming in and giving us all the feelings. Good luck to DJ Dallas on Tony's Fantasy Dynasty League. We're the Hawkscast podcast. As I said, with me is Zeb and Ross. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. We have a website. Check it out, hawkscast.com. We love to hear from you. Chime in. Find a way to get a hold of us. We're all online. And we want to wish you a very happy Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Hawks.